This is Bailey and French live at 8:30. Another week has flown by, and I'm joined by Alex. Alex, I hope your half-term break was all okay.
Yeah.
We missed you last week.
Oh, well, you know what it's like. It's yeah, it's manic. It's not often a break for any of the other working parents out there. Sometimes it's a break to come back to work, right? But we'll yeah, it was nice to get a rest.
Yeah, and it was great to see you having a rest, and I know you joined the session, which was also awesome. So thank you. It's great to have you back. And we're also joined by Sally. Sally, you've been listening to the show for a little bit, so it was great to get you on board and get your thoughts today. Good with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, not a problem. These half an hours kind of always fly, don't they? But just a reminder to anyone that's new that might be watching or listening, we're live on LinkedIn. It's also being recorded on YouTube, so you find out all of the conversations we've been having. We're live every Friday at 8:30. We haven't got particular topics. It's just a conversation about the trends, what's been happening in the world this week. It's very weekly focused, lots of change every week at the moment, so trying to keep on top of that. And also just thinking about everything from a lens of humanizing the world of work. What is actually happening in terms of humanizing and changing and evolving this future of work that we're all involved in. So great to have you with us if you're new. Type questions and things into the chat. Please feel free to interact and ask us questions if you have any. It's great to have your engagement. So I thought we'd kick off. How is everyone this week? What's been happening?
I'm also back from half term, which was really nice. Really good to get a break and actually get away and leave the county. So I'm based in Kent, so not too far away from you guys. Yeah, really nice. So yeah, really glad to be back though. It's really nice. So this week I've been kind of dealing with some of the challenges from a couple of weeks before. So I work a lot. I do careers coaching, and I work a lot in schools, particularly at the moment, this time of the year. And I've been working with a lot of year 10 students. And just before half term, we had a problem because some of them had to self-isolate. So we had to reschedule them. So I've been sort of busily carrying on with more than I would have done. But yeah, it's the nature of how things are at the moment, and it really reflects that.
Yeah. We were talking about that last week, weren't we? Around Thomas and I were talking about everything changing.
Sorry, I missed you last week.
Well, you were on half term. It was really interesting. You're talking about everything changing week by week, right? And we were talking last week about the resilience to keep going in those hard times and how you bounce forward and then when you get knocked back. And actually, you made a really good point a few weeks ago about the experience of, you know, if you feel and experience something really negative, actually it takes a long time before you can shrug that off, and even something small can take you back to that state of negativity quite quickly.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So last week seems like a long way away already, like half term. That's why I was just sitting there thinking, yeah, did I get a rest? Actually, I think I've just realised really important factor, and I'm sure many of people had the same thing. It was the first time that we saw some members of our family for a very long time, because it was the first kind of school holiday that people could stay over with the new kind of relaxing of the guidelines. So actually that was really, it was really cathartic. It was really healing to see people face to face that you love and that you know, and that you just feel that comfort with. So there was a bit of a re-engagement around kind of like, I know it sounds a bit wishy-washy, a bit fluffy, but like who I am and like what I've become. And I thought it was really interesting. McKinsey's update this week was talking about kind of people reflecting on what they've become. And I thought, actually, that's really relevant, because although we're looking ahead, everyone's talking about September as kind of what's going to happen next. I'm sure I'm not alone in being the one that's probably quite reflective at the moment, thinking, my goodness, like of everything that's happened, what have we now become? And I've got this sense, I've got this feeling almost like, I don't particularly like roller coasters, right? I'm a bit of a wuss, really. When I go on roller coasters now, for my children's sake, it actually, I feel quite frantic, I feel quite anxious. I'll sometimes hold on too tight and hurt my hands, but I'll also feel a bit sick. But sometimes there's a little bit of a thrill, and then I'll get off and I'll feel a bit wobbly and a bit like, ooh, a bit like, okay, I got through that. Actually, I'm all right. And I've got that bit of that feeling now. In a sense, like, gosh, what we've been through last year, I definitely held on tight and hurt myself a few times. And, there's been that thrill of like, some things have been okay compared to what we thought they would be. And some things have been awful. But actually, I'm through it now. But what have I become? Kind of looking back, like, what's that made of me? And I think that's definitely the kind of the mindset that I'm in this week, and thinking about the business in that way too. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to see family. We have people here who still haven't seen some of their family for a very, very long time and are waiting to do so. And so I feel very grateful for that. But also just like, where are we now? How is the team? We've been back in the office for a bit. What have we become? What are the main differences and the changes that have happened to us, and things that have gone well and things that haven't gone well? And how can we pick that up and like allow that to be our new identity? And so I'm really interested with Sally. You must probably coach a lot around this with transitions in roles. This is, a lot of people are moving roles at the moment, aren't they, Sally?
Absolutely, and I think the words that's pinging up to me, and I think it's come up in conversation previously here, but is a sort of the identity, the reflection, and the authenticity as well about who am I, where am I? It's a big question. We don't wake up I don't wake up every morning thinking who am I, but it is actually, it's really important, and I think in a work context, yes, and the reality of things like, some of the clients, so I work with adult clients as well, and the one-to-one clients that I work with, so we go through a kind of an assessment and things, and talk to them about how that went and everything and where they want to come from. And some of them are making really positive choices, or thinking about, making goals, setting goals for moving into completely different roles, or something slightly tangential that's a bit different but not completely. So there's a lot of that going on, and there's also, it seems to me, going into the sort of September idea, and I don't have any actual coming through that obviously people on furlough suddenly are like, what are we going to do now? So I'm suspecting that my September is going to be quite busy, which I hope in a way, I hope it is, but I hope it isn't, in a sense, because I don't want people to have sudden crises, but I want this planning, this reflecting the whole, if you like, kind of the learning cycle, looking at the sort of reflection side of things is really important, I think, and being more authentic with yourself.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And I really feel for people who have had just such consistently changing circumstances. Tom just reminded me this morning that actually one of the airlines brought a whole lot of people back from furlough for a month, thinking things were going to shift, and then they went back on furlough again. I cannot imagine how that must feel when you are like ramping up to getting back into things, to then being almost put back. That must be a very difficult scenario, and I'm sure has made many people consider what they're going to do next, and whether or not that is something that's going to continually happen, or whether it's going to be something that actually shifts their thinking, or how the organisation is going to maintain engagement with the company. It's already got long-term damage, but how much more damage can people take before they actually not snap, but before they just go like, this is ridiculous, can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and it's back to our old friend communication as well, isn't it? Keeping in touch with people when they are, for example, on furlough or that kind of scenario. I'm thinking about kind of particular case study, if you like, about a guy that I spoke to a couple of months ago who was working out of Heathrow, who was actually an aircraft, because I tend to focus on people like pilots and stewards and things, but it's actually an aircraft engineer, and he'd been made redundant, and he was looking at, do I carry on in the sim similar way or something completely different. But suddenly, boom, you know, I've been in this job for however long, I think it's about 20 years, you know, and it's really scary, you know.
It is, and it's changed us. And it's changed us personally as well. So I also had another very interesting conversation with someone after an exercise class, completely separate to work. She was a complete stranger. I didn't know her. But she said to me, I said, oh, that was nice after being in the office today. And she said, oh, I wish I could go back to the office. And she said to me, she was working in the airlines industry. And she said, you know, lots of the parents are quite keen to continue working from home, but actually so many of the people she knows are desperate to get back in for the social interaction that they're missing. And then she just added in this line at the end that was the most important thing to her. And she just said, and I'm so sick of sitting at home with my husband. And I thought, like, yeah, what's it doing to our relationships? Having to be with like one person all the time and not getting the interaction that we're used to. What does that mean for us in terms of, again, our identity, who we're becoming, what relationships mean to us, what we're getting from those relationships, and what we're expecting as well, because that's huge. You can't expect the same from a plethora of people from one person. And it's the stress and pressure. And she was, you know, I'm still on furlough. I've no idea. We've got no clue when we're coming back in. Great communication, but there's just nothing happening. And there's no sight of what's happening next. And that's really tough, isn't it? When you can't see, it's the hope piece, I think. And I think that we had that in several lockdowns, didn't we? Is that kind of, what can we hope for without getting our hopes dashed too much? I've dashed my children's hopes several times in this last year, and it's horrible where you think, actually, we're going to do this thing, and you get excited about it because kids really think it's going to happen. And then my daughter once said to me, she said, I've given up. She said, I don't believe that's really going to happen until it happens. And it broke my heart. I was like, oh my goodness, there must be people everywhere in that situation.
Yeah, and I think particularly with younger people who I work with, you know, especially at the moment, predominantly because this is my busy time working with them, that, you know, they kind of, do I go to uni next year? You know, if I was going to go to, what is the reality for me in September? You know, which is very close, isn't it? And what do I study as well? What's going to be there? I was thinking about doing hospitality and catering or hotels, but is that a good idea?
Well, and also people want to go to university for the experience, right? First time away from home. And it's the same for jobs, you know, moving into a new role, new exciting thing, but it's going to be different. So what's that going to feel like? You know, it's been really interesting. I've been having a lot of conversations recently about the return to work programs that people are putting on. So normally return to work programs, obviously for returning mums or people who've been off on long-term sick, but actually opening up those programs to do exactly what you just said, Alex. It's about reflecting on identity, reflecting on, okay, who is the person that's now coming back, and what does this mean for you, and how have you changed, and is therefore your role here correct? You know, there's a lot of workforce planning at the moment where people are going, well, let's use this opportunity. You know, we've got people who have been learning all sorts of amazing, wonderful new talents. Let's see whether we can use them. But I think that's very rare. I think the companies that are doing that at the moment are the kind of leading edge ones on that. But it's been very interesting conversations.
Yeah, I saw something on assessment actually yesterday around that. People saying, you know, being asked questions about what you've managed to learn through the last year, and it was being bashed actually as like, actually we shouldn't be assessed on that because the last year for so many people has just been so awful that yes, a privileged few might have been able to use that time to learn and retrain, but actually loads of people were just getting through, and that shouldn't be kind of discriminate them against whether or not they're assessed for being a learner in a company. And I just thought that was like, wow, I hadn't even thought about that, but that is really, really important, isn't it? You know, we can't just assume everyone's been able to pick something up. I haven't, in the kind of reflecting on who I am piece, I've been reflecting on what really makes me happy and what brings me joy. Because to be honest, in the last year, I've been in get through mode and I haven't been laughing as much or finding moments of joy in the way I did. And I guess the great thing is that it's really nice that the old things that made me happy still make me happy. So it's nice to remember those, isn't it? But I've had to remember them and bring them into our life again, because actually lots of people have been in that state of almost like, there's so much going on. How can I spend a day being happy doing something when so many people are in such an awful situation, or I could affect something more positively?
Yeah. Absolutely. A few things come to mind, if it's okay to say. One thing, I was talking to actually a nurse the other day, and she was saying, she does a fairly sort of procedural type of work. She doesn't have to go and do other things. And she actually said to me, she said, I'm feeling quite guilty because I haven't been on the front line, as it were. I said, but you're doing a really important job being a nurse in a certain situation, but for her, she felt she hadn't contributed enough. So I think there's a sense of, in some cases, sort of guilt. And the other thing I'm picking up on a lot is, and I was on a webinar the other day about mental health and mental well-being through all of this. It's about motivation, and just as we were saying about expecting people to be motivated, and it's really hard. A lot of people just getting out of bed is good for them.
So right, Sally. And we've had a few donut days here, haven't we, Ant? Where it's literally like, we can't necessarily affect people's inner emotions that much, because yes, there's lots of things we can do to help people feel better at work, focus on their meaning, their purpose, but sometimes it's going to be donuts that helps. Actually it's going to be just something small. It's going to be something small in the moment, something that actually just lifts you, makes you feel different, rather than some of those more deeper, meaningful things, which are just going to take time. I think there's a huge amount of time here that's going to take for people, and that's going to be difficult for businesses to deal with the new slowed pace of everything. So much more risk averse businesses taking things up, lots more people involved in decision making. To move things forward is becoming hard, and working with new hybrid ways of working, which no matter how well you do it, puts barriers in the way of speed and pace. And so it will, it's really going to be interesting. Those agile and pacey organizations that kind of continue to work well through this are going to come to the top so quickly. And what does that mean for everyone else who's kind of, not used to that pace, or who wants something a bit quicker? How do we work with that? And they're talking, aren't they, about this kind of mass, everyone leaving and everyone kind of like going for new jobs. I think we're seeing that quite a bit, as well as a whole load of people sitting still going, no, I'm okay. Why would I mess with what I've got right now? I'm just going to sit still and see what happens. It's a very interesting market, isn't it, for pipelining and recruitment.
And very, very unpredictable, I think. It is difficult. We can only make sort of, as we can normally, but even more so now, make predictions and trends and things. And I think, there's this flex, the idea of being able to sort of flex more. But as you say, some people can't, won't, don't, and that's not a bad, that's not a bad thing. That's how they work. And the companies have always, the ones that have always done it like that, they've been successful doing it like that in some cases, haven't they? And now suddenly, the other thing that comes to mind on this side of things is the kind of role conflict and role ambiguity, which I think is potentially likely to happen more. Like, I need to take on another task within my role because of somebody's left or something's happened, and how comfortable people are with that. I think that's a big issue, and how well communicated that is.
It's really important, isn't it? So it's very interesting, actually. One of the things we've always worked with around our performance motivation stuff is the fact that respect is the most important thing. If we don't feel respected at work, we will leave. Kind of fundamental. But the second thing in line is clarity. If we don't have clarity of what's expected of us, then we can't perform. It's just such a simple statement, and it's so impactful. But you're right, real conflict is the stress and anxiety that causes for people is huge. So how do we do that in a way that doesn't feel like micromanaging, but having conversations regularly with people like, do you actually know what you need to do today? Do you know what the big priority is for our team this week? Do you know why you're doing what you're doing and how it connects to what else is going on around here? Those questions are almost like they should be every day for everyone. We should be talking in teams. and the power of teams as well, not just the individuals. We cannot focus on just high-performing individuals. We've got to be able to make sure that the team is supporting each other, because there are going to be people who are ebbing and flowing in terms of performance and well-being much more than ever before. So that team cohesion is going to be absolutely fundamental going through into the next few months and the next few years, and potentially just the future ways of working.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It's we were talking last week about the team experience and how important that is, ever more so now than ever before, right? And I think it's because of that point. If the team is not communicating and getting clarity for each other constantly, and that is not a top-down leader getting clarity for people, it's also the person getting clarity for themselves, and just flagging when they don't have that clarity and recognizing that as well. It's a two-way thing, and it's also a three-way thing, because it needs to be within the team. Do we know how we work together to achieve my objectives this week? Because that's important. We're finding more and more people checking in daily, but maybe for 2-3 minutes, which is fine. But doing that virtually is really difficult. Doing that with a hybrid team, where some of you are in the office, some of you are not, is even more difficult, I think, or I've definitely experienced that here and found it more challenging. So how do we support those teams to have that kind of environment where that is a continuous flow of communication and clarity and checking on performance and well-being? You don't have to do it all in one conversation, but it is a continuous check-in, right?
Yeah, and the most important piece is being the sharing amongst the team. So yeah, just having your own clarity is one thing, isn't it? Having that with your manager, great. But, you know, your manager's always going to be overloaded. I don't know any manager right now that hasn't got a million things to do. So, you know, being able to share that with your team. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because in small teams, it's so much easier for people to kind of stand out when they're not up to speed. It's really obvious who's not pulling their weight, I think, in small teams. But in larger organizations where I've worked, you can just hide and just almost just, you know, I don't know what the word is for it, but you can kind of just get through each day, go through the motions without really impacting on moving things forward. And you know inside if you're not achieving or being productive around things that make a difference. And that's really impactful for our well-being if we don't feel that, because as human beings, you know, every 24 hours, we need to feel like we're able to influence something, have an impact positively on things around us, whether that be, you know, nurturing plants in our garden, or whether that be nurturing the development of our teams. And, you know, feeling that you can walk away at the end of the day going, absolutely, tick that off, tick that off, tick that off. I know loads of people who do, you know, to-do lists in lots of different formats. And it's that allows them to kind of go back and rest and feel, okay, I can rest, I can have dinner, I can talk to my friends, I can go to an exercise class and feel satisfied with myself. And that plays such a big part in our identity, doesn't it? In terms of us being, you know, valued, but valuing ourselves and feeling worthy of our jobs and our positions within the team and part of a company that's doing something positive in this world. And I think that's huge right now.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, Alex, the respect and also the value, isn't it? The being valued as part of a team. And I work for myself, but I work in, you know, remotely with other people. So I feel valued by others. I feel I value others too. You know, it's whether you're employed, self-employed, or whatever. It's about that connection, however that manifests itself. And feeling that you are making a difference some way or another as well, you know, because if you are part of that huge organisation sat at the back, oh yeah, I'm having a vision of that now. Someone about 30 years ago, I think, used to fall asleep every Friday afternoon. But anyway, you know, if you are, then I think, yeah, you're not actually doing, you know, you're not doing yourself any good either, are you? You're not feeling very good about yourself, I shouldn't imagine.
Well, no. And because, you know, it's so much easier when you're not in an office, for people to not see you being disengaged, and you can switch it on easily, can't you, for a half an hour Teams call. But actually, if you walk away thinking, oh, that was a waste of time, I'm just making another cup of tea while I think about what's next and what's really worth me doing. You know, it's really quite I think that's really hard. How do we help disengaged people who are working remotely feel that they're worth something, that they're valued members of the team and the organisation? That's, you know, super powerful.
I think, as you said, very, very straightforwardly in some ways, checking in, checking in at least every day, and knowing the people to go to, and having those meetings, having a lunch as and when, or whatever it might be. The company I work with a lot, we actually had like a pizza lunch a while ago and things. So the actual pizza came to us, we got it delivered and everything. I mean it was great. It's a great idea. Create your own pizza, so it comes in a pack and you create it. And then
brilliant.
everybody looks at you. No judging, no. We didn't have a competition. I was hoping we would, because I thought I might win. But anyway, but that sort of silly little fun thing. But it's those things, I think. It's not trivial, is it?
No, it's actually really huge, and it's just, and it's steps as well, isn't it? So we kind of did something similar, and now with being back in the office, our leadership team went for breakfast the other day. It was so amazing. It was just breakfast, but it was so amazing. It was like, we sat just having a normal laugh and a chit chat, and I just wanted to laugh. And it was like that feeling of like, oh gosh, it just feels human, doesn't it? And something else I read this morning about, we're going to need to be better, certainly in HR and in the people functions that we work with, to be better at anthropology now. So actually understanding the history of human existence, the human living organism. What is it that really makes us human? That really is, what is it about social interaction that is in our, in our ancestry, that actually it creates the need and the desires that we have on a daily basis? And I think that's going to be really, I'm quite fascinated actually by that, because I studied a bit of that part of my degree and I loved it. So really bringing that through into the forefront is like, let's not imagine that, as a human, we have to do this human at work thing and not look at the enormity of actually where humans have come from, and that really lovely learning that we've had through the years. And we've got that all at our fingertips. It's just, for some reason, it's not a work thing, but I think it should be. I think it should be a work thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
You're absolutely right. There is an amazing book that I love, Sapiens. It goes through that in so much detail. I had to listen to it in the car because it's quite a big book. It goes through so much of the history, and I came away from that going, it's amazing that we even have workplaces. Like for these amazing humans to get together, more than one of you in a team that then grows into these large organizations. The fact that happens is quite frankly amazing. So our expectation levels, and I know it is about growth, and it is because that is an achievement thing, that is a human thing. Humans need to feel like they're progressing and have done since day dot, which is another thing that the book goes through. But actually, when your expectation is too high, that's when you become super disappointed. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have goals and objectives, right? It's super important. I've just said it's fundamental to having an engaged workforce, to have goals to push forward, to have a meaning and a reason to get out of bed. It's really important. But let's also remember and be kind on ourselves, that we are human, and we are amazing, we are wonderful, and we are capable of just some amazing, the book goes through some extraordinary examples of human achievement. So we are capable, but we also have to be kind on ourselves, and we have to recognize that it takes time. It takes time. I was reminded this week by my team, because it's a phrase that I've been saying, but I haven't said it for a while, and it comes from the Navy SEALs, which is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Now, I'm not a massive fan of all of the stuff that Navy SEALs do, but I think that phrase actually is really resonant at the moment with the pace, as you mentioned earlier, Alex. Like, going smooth and going slow is fast. That is agile. Because you make conscious decisions, you move forward with the decisions. The trouble is you've got a changing environment. So once you make a smooth, slow decision, you then actually need to change that again. So there's a balance between that. But I do like the phrase, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Because you're moving slow, you're reflecting, you're continuously evolving. And that's what humans do really, really well throughout the
And that sort of resonates with me, talking about, if you're familiar with Kahneman and, the conscious and unconscious, thinking fast, thinking slow, all of that kind of thing. But it's all those things that we process. We don't you know, we don't sit back and look at, as you said
Yeah.
right at the start, Alex, you know, the reflection,
Yeah.
is really, really important, isn't it?
Yeah, making time for that. I know. And I can't believe it's 9 o'clock already.
No, I was looking at the time going, how's that happened again?
Great.
It's been awesome. Thank you, Sally, for joining us. It's
Pleasure.
been really good
Thank
to
you
hear your comments throughout the week, actually, and to have you on today. It's just been awesome. And keep going with the career transition stuff. I think it's important now more than ever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have a lovely day, everybody, and take care. Have a good weekend when you get there.
Great rest of your day. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Off to interview now. Bye.
Thank you, and thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.